Ho ho. Thursday evening once again. What's going on, everybody? As usual, can everybody hear me and see me all right? I see my boy David Simpson is watching already. I am proud of you, David. You passed the first part of the test. All right. Let's kind of get this party started. I'm hoping tonight that I can be a little shorter than usual. I don't have a whole lot to go over. I want to kind of show a couple of new products that we got out. One that's, going to be I think a really big product for, the do-it-yourself builders that like to use modified engines, build modified engines, and that use our stroker kit. It's going to make it a little more user-friendly for you and could possibly help make a little more power with the engine. I'll go over that, and I also want to kind of go over tonight some of the basic things that you have to do when putting our billet stroker kit into a GX200 or a clone or a Predator engine, because we try to make everything, all of our products, as user friendly as possible, so it's you don't have to grind on this and cut that and move this to use our products. But with the differences in all the blocks that are out there, from the GX200 to the clone, several different clone blocks, to the Predators, and every once in a while you're going to run into a few clearance issues in the block. It's just the nature of the beast. You put a bigger stroke in something that's not designed for it, sometimes you run into problems. But I'm going to kind of go over a few things about that tonight with you, on some of the areas that you may run into problems with. And let's see, we got Arizona. Let's see, South Dakota. How you doing? How you doing? Yeah, Taylor. He was probably scared. He was. I'm joking with David. You see David Simpson on here. Him and Taylor both are one of ARC employees, and I'm always trying to get them to watch the videos more. So I tell them I'm gonna get on here and talk bad about them if they don't watch the videos. That way I know they get on here to see if I say anything about them. But, all right, Detroit City on the map. Good deal. All right, let me go ahead and kind of get started here with a few things. First of all, I'll kind of show off one of our new connecting rods here. This is the new connecting rod that goes with our billet stroker kit for the GX200. Part number 6765. I'll show it again here in a few minutes. But what this rod does, normally when you use our billet stroker kit, and I've got a block and everything over here as you see, normally our billet stroker crank is 175 thousandths longer than the OEM clone or Honda cranks. And normally when you put the billet kit in, you'll use of course the Wiseco pistons. And what you have to do with it, because of the longer stroke and trying to get the best rod ratio, you normally have to cut 80 to 90, sometimes 95 thousandths off the top of this piston so that you wouldn't have pop out of the block. Try to get this over a little bit more. Oh, it ain't gonna work. But anyway, so that you could set your deck height and to get the piston down into the block. That was a what we call a builder's type kit. That's what we originally built it for. And more and more do-it-yourselfers, DIYers, backyarders, which I include myself into that kind of stuff, started using these kits, and getting more and more popular. And we get calls all the time. I'm gonna order a kit. Can you go ahead and cut a piston for me? Well, we could, we couldn't, depending on different block heights and stuff like that. Cutting the pistons usually isn't that hard. Some people do it on a belt sander. I don't recommend that, but a lot of people do it. But what we've done to help the do-it-yourselfers, DIYers, backyard builders, my people, is we come up with a little bit shorter rod to help you with the stroker kit. So now you do not have to cut the piston. 90 to 95% of the blocks you put this in, it's going to wind up somewhere between 10 thousandths in the hole to 0 deck to maybe 5 thousandths. I've seen a block here and there that I'd have about 5 thousandths out the block, but the majority of them was either 0 deck or around 10 to 5 in the hole, which more user friendly. Meaning all you got to do is put it together and put it in, and your piston don't have to be cut. Now, another thing that does, not only does it make it user friendly for installing the kit into the engine, just anybody can do it. This is the normal piston that you use. Notice it has basically 2 rings. It has one ring that's a compression and an oil scraper ring, and then it has the standard 3-piece corrugated oil ring on it. What this shorter connecting rod will do, since you don't have to cut the piston now, I just lost connection. My connection went out for some reason. I don't know why. Sorry. But now that you can use the shorter connecting rod, you don't have to cut the piston. Now you can use this 3-ring piston from Wiseco. It has, just like a normal OEM piston, has a top compression ring, has a second oil scraper ring, then it has the 3-part oil corrugated ring. This will help seal the engine better and help seal it longer. These pistons here, they're a little tricky on getting to seal because there's only one ring and there's certain ways you have to break it in. And they're great pistons, but with only one compression ring, it tends to wear out fairly quickly because it's doing a lot more work than it needs to be doing. Now that you can use the 3-piece or the 3-ring Wiseco, you got an extra ring up there to do the work that the 3 rings are supposed to do, like an OEM piston: compression, oil, the corrugated oiling ring. A lot more compression, especially on the top end. With these 2-ring pistons, at higher RPMs, 8,500, 9,000, 9,000 plus, sometimes, depending on how you hone the engine, your finish on it, you could possibly get some ring flutter on top end RPMs, which is some of the things that would lead to it blowing some oil out on the racetrack, or also with like fuel getting into your oil, but run these extremely rich carburetors. Not saying this is going to eliminate the fuel and the oil, because these methanol engines, they run very rich, but it will really cut down on your blow-by, on the fuel getting into your oil, and will really help the longevity of the engine. All that equals to horsepower. But like I say, this little bit shorter rod makes it now so that you can run this 3-ring Wiseco with our 175 stroker crank in 97 to, if not 98% of the blocks out there. At least 95%. I've checked them. This is a genuine GX200 block that I got. I've checked it in it. I've checked it in 2 different style clone blocks that we got, and I've put it in a non-Hemi and a Hemi Predator, and I got all about the same results. Now, the non-Hemi Predator, of course, is a much taller deck height block, so it was in the hole a little further. But on the GX200s and the clones, it come out on all of them between 4 in the hole and 10 in the hole. So, no more cutting the piston, longer ring wear, better compression, better seal, more horsepower, all by using this rod. And it's the same. The same rod got all of our rods have the forced oil dipper on it. Of course, this rod has got the bearings in it. This is a setup rod, as I like to call it. Been using it to set this up to check everything with, which means this is a used rod now, so I get to keep this one, right, David? But anyway, that's one of the main products I wanted to talk about tonight, and I'll go over some more about this with you. But just wanted to highlight it that we do everything we can to make things as user friendly and as possible, so that anybody can do this. Now, aside of this, like I was saying before, when you go putting longer strokes, longer rods, different pistons and all in blocks you're not designed for. Sometimes because of, manufacturing tolerances, different type Honda blocks. You got old style GX200 blocks. This is one of the new style GX200 blocks. You get to where you may have to do some clearancing inside the block. Now, one of the best things to do when you're getting a billet stroker crankshaft to check your clearances is to find an old side cover, like I got here, and cut it out. It ain't got to be as elaborate as this, but what this is going to do is going to hold your crankshaft in the correct position. It'll also hold your camshaft in the correct position, so that when you're clearancing stuff, you're getting the proper clearance, and you know that it's being clearanced right. Because you take this side cover off, and I cut mine out. I'll show you how I cut it out here. Hold on. I only used 2 bolts in it, but I cut it out so that I can still use both of the dowel pins. Dowel pin here and dowel pin here. And that helps center everything and make sure that the crankshaft's in the correct location, because without the side cover on, as you can see, the crank can move around, and so can the cam. And if you're doing clearancing in there, like clearancing the cam or clearancing the block, and you get it clearanced like this, and you're like, okay, it looks good, you got plenty of clearance, you put the side cover on it, it may hit, or it may be extremely close and hit once you crank it up. So, this is something that's been done for years and years and years, even further than some people have been doing this 10 years ago. This has been done for generations. My granddad used to do this. Cut these up. That way, hold the crankshaft in the right position. You get all your clearancing done properly, and there's no question about it when you get done. But to show you some of the areas that you may run into with, and this is actually, this is kind of something else I need to talk about also. This crankshaft, the billet stroker crankshaft, most of them that are sold are called chromoly, made of a 41, 43, whatever geological number they come up with for that stuff. Made of chromoly. We offer, every crankshaft that we make, we have what's called a super alloy. If you look on our website, you got some crankshafts that's a certain price, and you got some crankshafts that's basically the same, and it's a higher price. That's the super alloy. It's a material that's a good bit more dense than the chromoly, meaning it's stronger. So any crankshaft that we can make out of the super alloy or the chromoly. The part number will end in C if it's a chromoly. This is a 6573. It don't have a C after it. The C would mean chromoly, and the standard number would be the super alloy. And any crankshaft we make can be made either or material. Just throwing that out there for y'all. For somebody that is wanting stronger cranks, we offer them. We've been offering them the whole time. We just don't advertise it a lot, and we are now. Okay, putting a longer stroke crankshaft in any block, whether it's a GX200, GX390, whatever, you're going to run into basically the same problems. A lot of your problem is going to happen up here on it's called the top of the block, bottom of the cylinder, in this area right here. This is the area where the rod is going to get extremely close to the top because of the longer stroke. This is going to be the main area. Y'all check out my flashlight. Ain't that cool? This is Landon's. And it really is Landon's. It's not mine, even though I stole it from him and use it all the time. That area right in here. And where's my pointer? This is the area that if any block is going to have clearance issues, it's going to be right here. Basic Dremel tools, you don't need nothing fancy with this. Of course, I got all the air tools and stuff, but you don't have to have these high-dollar air tools. It's standard Dremel from Walmart, Home Depot. Get you a few, actual metal cutting bits and some sanding bits, and install the piston with no rings on it when you first get it. Oil the cylinder up, make sure everything's good and clean so nothing gets scratched. Oil it up, put the rod on it. You ain't got to torque it all the way down, torque it to, 125 inch-pounds. That's fine. All you're doing is checking the rotation. Put oil on your crankshaft, put oil on the bearing, put oil on the piston so the stuff can move. Rotate it around with the cutout side cover on it, and you'll notice that a lot of times it hits at the top. Not all the time. I've had several blocks I put these in, they never hit. And take your Sharpie and outline the area where it hits. That way, where you outlined at is bigger than the rod area that it hits, and use your Dremel and cut outside those lines and go a little at a time, because it is kind of thin up here, and I have myself cut through a block before, not paying attention, talking on the phone to somebody, and cut right through it. But with these new GX200 blocks, you'll see that they have like little windage areas in them. These blocks are a lot stronger than a clone block. If you're going to build a modified, I highly recommend you starting out with one of these GX200 blocks. They're just thicker, they got better webbing, and they come with, the newer ones have these windage trays in them, which do they help with windage, oiling? I don't know, but it adds extra ribs to the block. That's why I like it. But these blocks, you can have them re-sleeved or bored. I've had blocks bored to 2815 without re-sleeving before. My modified engine I run now is 2815, got the standard sleeve in it. But because of these windage little trays here, or areas, whatever you want to call them, that's going to solid contact on the rod every time. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And again, go in there, mark it with a Dremel, use your high-dollar Batman flashlight, and so you can see, go in there, mark outside the rod on each side of it, and cut it out a little bit bigger than those marks. And you're going to have to go all the way into the, pretty much flat on the inside. Clone Predator blocks, they usually don't have this kind of stuff in it, so you may not have to worry about it. But even then, you still need to put, cut your old side cover up, put it on and rotate it, and check everything in every position. Now, once you get the rotating assembly to where it spins freely, and you need a good, I think the standard is 50 thousandths between any close parts. I like to go 75, a little bit more if I can get it, because there's a lot of flex that's going on in these blocks. That crankshaft is flexing, the block is flexing, and I like to have a little extra room. So if I can get it, I like to have, around 75 minimum between, the upper area here with the rod, or any other area in the block. That's what this is for. That's why you use this, because if you set your 75 with this on it, it's going to be 75 all the time. If you set it without it, you might think it's 75. You put the side cover on, the crankshaft moves up 10 thousandths and, or 20 thousandths in the wrong direction, and now your clearances are less. But once you get that done, pop your little side cover back off and put your cam in it. You don't necessarily, well, you need the rod and piston on it too, because you may have cam issues depending on what kind of cam you run. Whether it's the cast cams, because I still run cast cams in a lot of these engines. I don't run the billet cams in these engines unless it's a 390 with really big spring pressure. But most of these engines, I still run the cast cams. But if you do want to run the billet cams, I recommend going with a small base circle, because a smaller base circle on the cam is extra room in here that you have for the stroker. But whichever you use, you need to put the cam and the lifters on it with the rod and all still hooked up. You ain't got to have the rings on it, but have it good and oiled, good and clean. That way you can rotate around and make sure that you're not hitting the cam, because sometimes these lobes, depending on duration, lift, base circle, center lines, sometimes you can have some contact, with the crankshaft or with the rod, and you just need to make sure that everything in there clears. And do all this before you put your rings and actually torque your rod down, so that you ain't got to do that but one time. Because it's really aggravating, and Hunter can vouch the times I've thrown stuff across the shop because I didn't follow my own advice and make sure everything cleared before I put everything together and rotated around and something hit, and I got to take it back apart. But that's in a nutshell the basics on putting, one of our chromoly or super alloy stroker cranks in a GX200. That's a dry bearing. Can y'all hear it? I mean, it's completely dry. I cleaned this block, and I don't think I put no oil on it. It might be rusted. I don't know. This area part here of the rod, it's made that way for strength and durability purposes, and that's the area that you may run into right here. Do not cut the rod. Do not cut the rod at all. Anytime you cut material, roll material, whether you do it on a mill or by hand, you're risking the integrity of the rod. So it's better to clearance the block than it is to clearance the rod. And if you run into camshaft problems, where the camshaft may hit the crankshaft or may hit the rod, I'm one of the type of people in most applications, especially with a billet crank that is balanced, and I'll get into that in just a minute, but you want to, if you can, cut the camshaft. Now, if it's a good part of the lobe hitting, you might want to take a little bit off the crank, but I prefer to take it all off the camshaft because, like I say, this crankshaft is balanced to certain pistons. Anything with the stock Honda, this crankshaft is balanced to the stock Honda piston, and it's still good in balance up to the stock Predator pistons, which is, the stock Honda bore is 2680, something like that, and stock Predator bore is 2756. Using those with the proper flywheels, the crankshaft's still in balance. You get up to 2815, 2.9, 3-inch, you'll have to get this crankshaft rebalanced to that bigger piston. That's a bigger piston, that's more weight the crank's having to push and pull, and it will throw the crank out of balance, which is the biggest reason why, if you got clearance issues with the cam, to cut it off the cam if possible, because you don't want to mess up the balance of this crank unless you're using a piston way bigger than what it's designed for. Then you need to get it rebalanced, and that says so on our website under the crankshaft, that the piston 11132 PS, P2, and P94, which is standard bore clone, Honda Fit clone, and the stock Predator bore, this crankshaft is balanced to. Anything outside of that, up to 2815, you might want to get it checked. 2815 and bigger, you're going to have to get it rebalanced every time. All right, so we can leave that in there. But this right here is a must when clearancing crankshafts. Same thing with like 390s. You put our stroker crank in the 390. All this stuff is dry and got surface rust on it. You want to take an old side cover, cut it up, and use it for clearancing, because it's got to have clearance. Well, dang it, why want to go on there? But on my surface rust crankshaft here, there we go. And all right, now back to the rod. Like I say, we're gonna try to be quick tonight, try to run through, and so y'all ain't got to stay up so late and look at my beautiful face all night long. Yeah, but man, I think that water's gone bad there. It's kind of goldish looking with foam. But the rod, like I say, same design, we just made it 100 thousandths shorter. So, we can use these better pistons right here on it. Still got to use, of course, the 490 wrist pins and those wonderful spiral locks. And it's highly, very highly, and I can't stress this enough, of highly recommending our HD wrist pins. They're very thick, they're tapered, they're designed for overhead valve applications. The standard Wiseco wrist pin is a great wrist pin, works very, very well in flathead stuff, big bore flathead stuff, but because of cylinder angle and cylinder pressure, the Wiseco pins tend to flex and break in these overhead valve applications. And these HD pins is a must with any Wiseco piston that we sell, whether you're using it in our billet stroker assembly, whether you're using the 3.595 that will also work with the 3-ring piston, or if you're using our 3.707 that you'll have to use this piston on and still cut it down. Highly, and I say it again, highly recommend that you use these tapered HD pins, part number 6521. It's a related item to all the stroker stuff, to most of the Wiseco pistons, and you know they'll do away with your wrist pin problems. But with this rod, just like any other rod that we sell, they come with instructions. And I've done a video on this. Man, it's probably been over 2 years ago, on connecting rods, on how to install a billet connecting rod. I showed how to use plastic gauge. I showed how to mic it, how to take measurements, and I went through the whole procedure. If you know, I'm not going to go through that all right now. If you want to watch that video, look it up on YouTube. ARC Racing billet connecting rod, and you'll see my wonderful face again, and my hands a lot. I'm a hand modeling those. That's before I done live. That's when I done the stupid crap where I had a camera on my head and looking dumb. But all of our rods come with these instructions, and each instructions go with certain rods. And you know, the Honda rods will have, you know, Honda measurements right here, and the Predator rods will have Predator, and so on and so on. But when you get these instructions, it tells you everything you need to know about how to install this rod. You know, the 1/4-inch 12-point socket that you need, that's available at, you know, Home Depot, Lowe's, most tooling stores. Heck, even Harbor Freight's got them. In fact, I think that's what this is, the Harbor Freight one. Yeah. But follow the directions. You know, mic stuff. You know, it gives you the crankshaft measurements right there of what the crank journal should be, the finished size. It gives you a plus and minus. Tells you, you know, what clearances you're looking for. What's the minimum? What's the maximum? But it also tells you about the torque sequence of the bolts, and that's, you know, torque sequence is very important, because what you're doing when you're torquing a bolt down, whether it's a rod bolt, whether it's a head bolt, whether it's a bolt holding that light down up there, there's certain I'm back too much of that water, I guess. Certain torque specs that you're looking for, because what you're doing is you're stretching the bolt, and when the bolt stretches, it becomes a spring. And everybody talks about, oh, you got to put Loctite on these bolts. You got to put Loctite on that, Loctite on that. Well, I'm not a fan of Loctite, as a lot of people know, especially the person that gave me this shirt, because I guarantee he's going to pop up here in a few minutes and say something about Loctite. But when you stretch this bolt, it becomes a spring. And that proper stretch with proper torque is what holds it tight. And you want to stretch the bolt in a sequence to get the stretch where you want it. That's why all of our instructions tell you to start, you know, at 100 pounds, 100 inch pounds. Everything we do on the small stuff is inch pounds. The only foot pound stuff we got is on the 390s, 270s, 420s, and stuff like that. But all this will be in inch pounds. And it's important to start at 100. I usually start at 100, go to 125, then I go to 150. And you need to have some type of lubrication on the threads of the bolts. I use whatever motor oil I'm using to assemble the engine. I use it as assembly lube, and I use it on the rod bolts to lube the threads to get proper stretch. Like I say, I start at 100 pounds, go to 125, 150, and then I loosen them up and start over. Go from 100, 125, 150, and then my final 170. And what you're doing, two things there. You're getting the proper stretch on the bolt, and you're seating the bearings. That's why you tighten it down to 150, let it sit for 15, 20 seconds, a minute, and loosen them back up, because you're seating the bearing inside of the rod. You know, that bearing actually is not shaped the same way the rod is. They're not perfectly shaped, and they're like that for a reason. I got oil on my fingers. I can't get this out now. dead air. You know, you're seating the bearing into the rod, and paper towel fuzz, so that it fits that in the rod and takes the shape that it needs to, and that helps the bearing stay put, you know, of course, along with the little tags that are on it. But you want to tighten them down 100, 125, 150, let it sit, loosen them back up, start over again, 100, 125, 150, then to 170, and you're done. And these bolts, you know, I don't like reusing them too many times, because just like anything, once you stretch something, a little bit of elasticity is gone out of it. And you stretch these bolts, you know, 4, 5, 6 times, you know, you've lost a little bit of elasticity and their ability to stay tight over a long period of time. But the directions are here. They're easy to follow. Believe it or not, I talk to people all the time that don't even know these come in the box. And they're the first thing that goes in the box. They take the rods out, throw the box to the side, and never take these instructions out. And they come with every single rod that we make. And again, the video that I've done is on YouTube, ARC billet rod installation. It's also on the Facebook page here. You can scroll down. It's also on the website. Any connecting rod you go into, if you drop down below the connecting rod, it says video. And you go to that video and you see my pretty face and my nice, clean, manicured hands. And I show you how to do this with measurements and with the plastic gauge. I'm not going to get into that right now, but just remember that all small engine or small block stuff is in inch pounds. And right here is the sequence, the 150 with moly lube. Most people use regular oil like myself, so I go to the 170 mark. All right, and having said that, I'm going to talk a minute about torque wrenches. I've done this before in a video maybe last year, but a lot of people, including myself, have torque wrenches from Harbor Freight. This is a Harbor Freight torque wrench. This is my personal wrench. I use it all the time. I used it on the modified that I put together, and last year went down there and turned 9,300 RPMs for 150 laps or whatever it was. This torque wrench put it together. These are not bad torque wrenches. I'm not saying they're the best one on the market, but for 25 bucks, you about can't beat it. But like in my other video, I explained on why people have problems with these. These torque wrenches, the way they work, you got a rod that goes up here with a spring, and there's a little piece of metal in there that clicks. Whenever you get to the proper torque, it'll click, click. But these wrenches are not broken in from the factory. Don't know why. So when you first get it, you can set it on 50 inch pounds, which you can pretty much turn with your finger, and it takes both hands to make it click. So what I tell people to do, if you've got a Harbor Freight torque wrench, it's a decent investment. I use one, but it has to be broken in. Set it to the highest setting that it's got, which on this one is 220 inch pounds. Find a bolt that is welded to a table, or keep tightening it down. A big bolt, put a big socket on it, and sit there on the highest thing and just click it and click it and click it and click it until you feel it start getting a little easier to click. The first couple clicks is going to be hard because that little piece of metal in there that does the clicking has to be broken in. And it took me probably 20 minutes to break this wrench in. Done it on the hardest setting until I felt it getting easier. I mean, you still got to put some pressure to it, but it clicks easier and easier. And then I went down, 10 or 15 pounds at a time and clicked and clicked and clicked all the way down to, 50 inch pounds. And then I went all the way back up to 220 and never had a problem with the wrench. But I've had some people call me and say, man, I broke one of your rod bolts on 45 inch pounds. That's not possible. 45 inch pounds is not going to break this case hardened ARP bolt. These are the best bolts in the business. They make them for NASCAR. They make them for NHRA. They make them for NASA, I think. I don't know. I just made that up. They may not. But these are the best bolts in the business. That's why we use them. 45 inch pounds will not break this bolt. So I get to talking to them, and a lot of them have these. I went out and bought me a new torque wrench. Okay, what kind did you get? Harbor Freight. Okay, I use the same wrench. Here's your problem. And I tell them to go do that little procedure, and they call me back and say, you know, you're right, it was really hard to do, and I worked it in, I got a new set of bolts, they torque right up just like they're supposed to. So I've also had people with some little higher end torque wrenches do the same thing. So anytime you're using a new torque wrench or one you're not used to, somebody else's torque wrench, try it out on something before you actually go putting in a high performance part, because you know this stuff is precision made and has to be put in a precision like manner to get the full usage out of it and you know, get the full durability, you know, what it's designed to do. So Harbor Freight torque wrenches, nothing wrong with them. I use one. Here it is. I put many engines together with it. When I put this engine here together, this is going to go together. You know, this is billet crankshaft. I'm going to put it together with this wrench. And I'm not going to have a problem with it because I broke it in properly. You know, just anything with racing, anything with engines, just always remember, you got to break it in properly. I don't care what it is. Okay, now that I ranted on that, get some more of this bad water here. Yeah. Proper torque specs. I put that on backwards, you see me? You know, using the proper oil on these things. You know, I don't care what kind of motor oil, engine oil, whatever you want to call it. I don't care what kind you use. But use whatever you plan on running in the engine or breaking the engine in with to assemble. Use it for assembly lube. You know, I don't like using that thick engine assembly lube. I mean, Lucas, as you see, God, I hate this camera. I'm a Lucas guy. I won't even use their assembly lube. This stuff is too thick because it's great for cars. Cars have pressure lube system, meaning oil is sucked up through a pump and squirted out into places that it needs to be. These are not. This is a splash lube engine. You put that thick assembly lube inside these things, this engine has to spin many, many times to wear that out before oil is splashed into it. So why not start out with the oil that needs to be in there in the first place, and you ain't got to worry about that. Don't care what kind of oil it is. It's your oil, you use it. But use it to assemble this engine with. The rod, the rings, the piston, everything. Man, that water makes me burp bad. But don't use assembly lube. Don't use it. I don't like it on. I know a lot of people use it, and I'm probably gonna get somebody pop up right here. I've been using it for 25 years, never had a problem. Good for you. I'm just telling you, I don't recommend it because this is a splash lube engine. Just because you've been doing it for 20 years, don't mean it's the right way to do it. Just because I say it, don't mean it's written in stone. But I'm just telling you from my experience, don't use assembly lube. Whatever oil you use to break in with, assemble with it. See, there was something else I wanted to say. Lost my train of thought there. Oh yeah, all of our billet rods, regardless of what it's going in, we recommend a medium weight oil in it. That's why I like our Lucas oil. It's a medium weight oil that disperses like a lightweight. But with these rods, even in like stocker engines, it's only turning 65, 68, 7,000 RPMs. Hey.
Hey.
Everything all right?
Mm-hmm. Kitty wanted in.
Oh, the kitty cat wanted in. Okay. Yeah. Bye. Don't come up here and making no noise. Nobody wants to see you. No. No, don't you get up on this table. Stop. This is why I don't want him in here. He wants to get up here and batter everything. Here, play with this rod. But, see, I just completely, medium weight oil. These rods are so dense, they don't flex, they don't twist like a stock rod does. The bearing takes 100% of all the impact. So, to get the proper bearing life out of it, we recommend, a medium weight oil, which is about a 30 weight oil. I've run lights in them. When I run flatheads and stuff, I run Thor Light. Even though I don't like Thor Light now for gasoline engines, it's still one of the best methanol engines oil out there. I use Thor Light many times in these things, and you get a little better longevity, with the bearings and stuff with medium weight oil. But not saying that light is completely out of the picture, but you just If you want the bearing to last like it should and the crank to wear like it should, a medium weight oil is going to be better than these. Jeff, I'm not going to answer that question because I'm not supposed to be drinking on my show. I know this is not O'Doul's and it's not vodka. It's actually Coors Light, but anyway, I don't drink O'Doul's. Anyway, your O'Doul's joke kind of threw me off. Let me back up here and try to answer some of these questions that I really hadn't been looking at until somebody was a smart ass. Alright, 420cc Hemi valves. You looking for stainless or you looking for stock? Not sure on the stock ones. We should have stock size stainless ones here in a little bit. If not, NR Racing's got them, or SI valves for stainless. Yeah, Rick Keith, I was supposed to do a show a couple weeks ago, and I had to kind of cancel because my washing machine got caught on fire. Literally 10 minutes before I went on, I walked outside to get something out the shop, but I forgot. And when I went by my laundry room area, I smelled smoke, and the agitator motor locked up, the bearing went out on it, and the belt was spinning and had the whole room smoked up, and it almost caught on fire. So I had to kind of cancel for obvious reasons. Joseph, I try to give a shout out to mini bikers all the time. Mini bikers are a big part of our business. We love mini bikers. We want to help mini bikers. This stroker kit and everything, you know, a lot of the mini bikers do their own stuff. They build their own stuff, and they build some great stuff. I mean, I talk to people all the time that, you know, build some really good, high-powered, longevity-style engines, and, you know, this is one of the reasons we done it. You know, the DIYers, the mini bikers, the karters, the people that do it themselves, we're just trying to make it better on them, and they can also help make more power. Oh my God, Bradley Bush is in the house. We got like a world-renowned modified driver in here tonight, y'all. Bradley Bush himself. Good to see you, bub. Gearhead celebrity. Gearhead, yeah. Celebrity, not so much. Okay, Total Seal rings. I don't have them. They're out there. Not really sure where to get them. There's some available for a lot of the Wiseco style pistons. I know people that's used them, like in the flathead stuff, and, you know, with the 3-ring pistons, you know, do they offer more? Don't know. I haven't used any in overhead valve stuff. I know some people that have, and I'm not sure they're worth the extra money. Joseph, yeah, these crankshafts, like I said before, come balanced to the cranks, to the stock size crankshaft that the engine is designed for, which is the Honda, up to the Predator style piston. Anything over that, you might need to get it checked. Anything over 2815, especially 2.9, 3-inch, you need to get it rebalanced because it's gonna. All right. Yeah, Tom, that is what this paper is. I know pros like you don't have to read this kind of stuff. You know, this wasn't intended for you. It was intended for the non-pros out there. To be honest with you, I built these engines for years using these rods, and I never read them myself. I'm paid to mention that now. You have to read the instructions, everybody. I don't use them either. I'll tell nobody I said that, though. Show me performance. I just said it's not water, okay? It's Coors Light. I'm not going to pour it out. There it is. It's not water. It is in a nice cup, though, isn't it? Go Knowles. Yeah, this Clarence, 178 races on one of our rods. It's a long time, brother. Long time. Yeah, Mobile One, For gasoline engines, if you're running, regular pump gas, racing gas, higher octane, if it's gasoline, the Mobil 1 5W30, it's some pretty decent oil. But if you're going to use the Mobil 1, I highly recommend the high mileage oil. It comes in the blue label with the blue cap for 75,000 or miles or older vehicles. It has more zinc in it than the standard Mobil 1, like the 15,000 mile oil. It's a little bit below the recommended zinc levels for flat tapped style engines. But the Mobil 1 high mileage, I use it quite often. I use it on the dyno. I know people that run my engines, they use it. It's some pretty decent stuff. Nowhere near what our Lucas is, but for off the shelf oil, it is some pretty good stuff. Some people, I could have swore I saw somebody pop up here a while ago that has one of my gas modified engines, and they run Mobil 1 530 in it, high mileage, and good results. But my wife is watching. Hey. Best oil for methanol. The Thor is good for methanol. That's one of the oldest methanol oils out there. I used it for many years. But our Lucas, I'm gonna keep harping on our Lucas because that's something I had a small part in. It's good for methanol. It's good for gas, ethanol, nitromethane. Anything but beer and water will mix with it, and it has more zinc in it than anything you can name on the karting market right now. And that's what I use in all my karts. And I originally started testing this stuff on the road racing stuff because those road races go like where I went this weekend in Savannah. They go for practice pretty much all day on Friday if you want to, 10-minute session. So you can be on the track for up to an hour on Friday, 10-minute session, race morning, then you got a 30-minute race, and you do that for 2 days. So you got a lot of time on the engines. Of course, I do change the oil after the whole day, but there's a lot of time on it. And Saturday, both of my karts over there, both the engines run over 500 degrees for a 30-minute race, and still fine. Can't say that with too many oils out there. There's a lot of really good oils out there, but like I said, we run them over 5. One day I got to 539, I think, Saturday. But for methanol or Lucas, I'm going to recommend it all the time. It mixes with both. But, the Thor oils out there, medium and heavies, there's still some really good methanol oils. Just don't really, I'm not crazy about the Thor with gasoline because of stuff it does. Not saying it's not a good oil for lubrication. It just, the way it mixes with is kind of, but it's really good for methanol. Yes, Durban's got 2 TV stations. Actually, they got 3. You got the Channel 31, you got Channel 10, and you got JPTV. That's me. One of my cousins that live down the road. He's actually watching me now. He must be very bored if he's watching me. Opinion on blocks. When it comes to modifieds, nothing is better than starting out with a genuine Honda GX200. They're thicker, they got better webbing, better overall casting. And they can be bored most of the time up to 2815 by somebody that knows what they're doing. The Predator blocks, if you weld them, weld gussets on them, like some people up here, weld gussets up here and weld this and weld a gusset under here and behind the flywheel. Pretty much any block is going to be a good block because you're welding the extra support that it needs on there, that it didn't have before. So, but just plain blocks, if you're not going to weld them or you're going to put on bolt-on braces like I do sometimes, the Honda block is going to be far superior than any of the other ones. The best motor to put into a 77 Monte Carlo. I would probably either use a 327 or a 350. But if you really want to go out for it, order one of those 572 crate engines to go in. It's like 700 horsepower on pump gas. That's what I would do. You didn't think I'd answer that, did you? No, sir, I don't drink Heineken. I drink American beers. It's owned by foreign companies. Yeah, Josh, like I said before, Thor Heavy is a fine oil to run on methanol with the stroker kit. No problem with it. Roll Tide. Tide Pods, maybe. Well, Jason, everybody knows you're crazy anyway. But yeah, I've seen you mention that many times on websites about rebalancing. We do advertise that our stroker cranks are balanced, and all of them are to a certain piston size. I mean, we can't balance a crankshaft, and neither can you. You balance the stock ones and all this stuff. You can't balance a crankshaft to use with 5 different piston sizes. I mean, they may be close, but if you want it right, you got to stay within a certain weight. And the stock Honda and the stock Predator, they're balanced fine to it. Anything over that, get it checked. Anything over 2815, 2835, I highly recommend getting it rebalanced, especially 3-inch. Diesel oil. The biggest problem with diesel oil that I have is the cold viscosity of it. I think the lightest you can get diesel oil is what, 1540, maybe 1530. It doesn't have that atomization effect when it's cold like a 5 does. Does that really matter a lot with our rods? Not really, because that's where the forced oil dipper comes in at. So, diesel oils, I've used the Rotella, the semi-synthetic, a lot. I believe it's a 1030. I used it a lot back in the earlier days. It's a good oil. It's got a lot of zinc in it. And that thicker viscosity may hinder a stock rod, because a stock rod's got to get stuff atomized before it gets in that one small oil hole there. But with our billet rods, the forced oil dipper, as soon as that dipper hits that oil on the first rotation, it squirts oil up into the bearing. So cold starts are really helped a lot by our Landon's at the door. He's trying to come in. But as soon as that hits the oil, it squirts it up in there. So if the engine sits for 2 weeks, a month, 3 months, high compression engine, and you don't have this forced oil dipper, that engine's got to rotate. Guess who's here?
No.
Come here. Come here. Come here and say hi to everybody. Everybody's here to see you. Look what I got. Hey, Landon, look what I got here.
Can I start your Batman flashlight?
He is being shy tonight.
No, he's being loud.
Look what I got. What is that? Is that your Batman flashlight? Well, come here and get it. No, you got to come here and get it, so everybody can say, hey.
Turn it on.
You want to turn it on? Turn around, turn it on. Oh, God, he's getting huge. Look at there.
Yeah.
Say hi.
Hi.
Say bye.
Bye.
Say see ya.
See ya.
Be careful. Got
Mama's chair.
it. Yes, I'm in Mama's chair. I don't know what he's saying.
That's not a way.
Why is he singing disco music?
Don't dance not a way.
Yeah. Yeah, my son's singing disco music. But anyway, back to the he's even doing the dance. That's funny. I think he's got something in his cup too, the way he's acting. Mama's having to drag him out. That's funny. Anyway, like I say, that oil's a little thick on the start, but with our rods, it should be fine, because we got a forced oil dipper, and our engine's sitting up for 2-3 weeks with no oil on the bearing. As soon as you hit that starter and that 12-to-1 compression, it's going to skeet oil right up in there in it and get you lubed and ready for action. Power Plus oil, that's a good oil. We used to sell Power Plus, and I used to run Power Plus all the time. That's good oil. Stock Predators, yes sir. Yep, Jeff Lucas, it works. And Jeff, you see I got your flags up that you gave me in Daytona. They're draped over, for a good visual effect, around my gorgeous head. Royal Purple, good oil. I wouldn't run over a 530 because it's also got that cold non-splash effect to it. It doesn't atomize very well when it's cold. But Royal Purple's a good oil. Nothing wrong with it. Yeah, Tom, the Mobile One, the high mileage oil, or pretty much any of the good synthetic oils. You put some of that, an ounce and a half of the Lucas break-in oil in it and shake it up, it'll add a lot of zinc to the oil. That Lucas break-in oil, that's, I break in engines like Stalkers, AKRA type stuff. I assemble it with, regular motor oil, and I mix in a little bit of the Lucas in with it so that it sticks to the parts a little bit better. That's what I assemble with, and the original fire up is on regular, 520 Walmart oil with some of that Lucas break-in additive in it, and it don't run long. I don't dyno it on that. I just fire it up and I let it run, for 3 or 4 minutes to make sure that there's no rattling in the engine, there's no gas leaks, no oil leaks. Let it get just a touch of heat to it, shut it off, put the Lucas in it, put the belt on it, and then we start breaking the engine in. But yeah, that Lucas break-in additive is good in pretty much any oil. Just don't put a lot in it. Just put an ounce to an ounce and a half. The Mobil 1 diesel oil, it'd be good. But like I say, it's just a little cold, a little thick on the cold starts. But other than that, it's a good oil. Got a lot of zinc in it. Show me. I have one of the Ducar engines at the shop. We've taken it apart to look for parts that we need to make for it and all. That's as far as I've gotten with it. I really hadn't. The blocks look as good as the clone, not as good as the Honda. Might be a little touch better than the other Predator blocks, but they're a decent block. Anything can be good that's welded. And that's just like the 212 parts that we sell now. We have 212 blocks and 212 crankshafts on our website that are a lot like the Ducar blocks. They're a good block. They're 212 bore, which is 2756. The crankshafts are the 212 stroke, which is 2.165, but it takes the clone connecting rod and the clone flywheel, just like the Ducar blocks do that dyno sells. So we have replacement blocks and parts for those also. We also have pistons and OEM rods. Yeah, 400 small block Chevy for the Monte Carlo would be a good choice also, or you could throw that 400 crank in a 350 block and make it in 383, but not that I've ever done that. Is there any way to replace the bushings to bearings in the cam? I'm assuming you're probably talking about our billet, and I don't have one here. Our billet side covers, they got the bushing in them. No, the bushing is the bushing is. That's what it's going to be. We've had people question us on why we went from the ball bearing to the bushing. Number one, the bearing started getting so expensive to use an actual good bearing and not some cheap Chinese knockoff. It was just the pricing was getting higher and higher, and even then, people say that the bushing in there, something happens with their engine and the cam breaks, and it messes up the bushing area in it. Well, it would do the same thing to a ball bearing. I've got several of them laying over in the shop that a crank broke or a rod broke or the cam itself broke, and if it tries to pull out of that bearing, it's going to mess up the casing where the bearing goes, and you can't put another bearing in it. So either way, bearing or bushing, if something goes wrong there, it's going to mess it up sometimes, not all the times. But no, there's no way to replace that. And that bushing that we got in it is a self-lubed bushing. We've seen no wear. I've got some stuff that's been running. I think the first one we ever done is still on the engine that's running down in Florida that I've rebuilt several times. And if something breaks, a lot of times, no matter if it's a ball bearing or if it's a bushing, it's going to mess it up, and you're going to have to replace it regardless. I've been wanting to get to Penton for a while, especially to run a UAS race over there. I went over there years ago and really liked the track, and I really want to go over and run a UAS, but it's just time for getting me away. I went to Savannah last weekend. I was over here from Thursday to Sunday, and since I'm talking about it, I might as well talk about my shirt that I got on tonight. This is the group of people that I race with over in Savannah with the road racing, RTG. There we go. The Race Technology Group out of Darlington, South Carolina. Good group of folks. They've helped me a lot. There's no way I could have done what I've done with the road racing if it wasn't for them, that entire group. You know, Robert, Rob, Mr. Joe, you know, Darren, all of them. They've helped me a lot, done a lot for me, done a whole lot for me, getting the cars to the track and all. And, you know, but this is their shirt, so we got highlighted this week, you know, Darlington, South Carolina. And I appreciate all they do for me. They do an awful lot. I can't thank them enough. No way I could do it without them. I just appreciate them. Appreciate everybody on here. No, we don't stock the GX200 blocks. I can get them, but I think we got the last ones I got from NR Racing. We thought about stocking them, but so many other people do, and you know, so. But we can get them. Yeah, he is getting big. He's pushing 50 pounds now, and he is thick. Uh-oh. He is very thick. Rename this segment, Jody says. No. Just because I say it don't mean it's written in stone. This is a lot of this is coming off of, you know, my experience and the company's experience and people I talk to and deal with's experience, and, you know, being in the position that I'm in at ARC, I have access to a world of information. Not only my information that I've learned in my life doing this the hard way. Of course, with ARC, they've done it the hard way too for a long time. But I have access to a lot of builders and a lot of manufacturers that, you know, a lot of people don't have as easy access to. So, you know, that's when I come on here and say stuff, you know, it's factual, but it ain't written in stone just because I say it. But appreciate that though. I am gonna get me a shirt made though. If anybody wants to get one made and have it sent to me, I wear a medium. I want a shirt, a black shirt, white shirt, gray shirt, whatever that says I have a video on that. And I'll wear it on the show. I'm going to get one made myself one day so that when I'm somewhere and somebody asks me a question, I can just point at my shirt and say I got a video on that, so I ain't got to explain it again to go watch my video and and learn it. Dale, as far as methanol carburetors, I covered that in another show. I got a video on that. See, I could have used it right then. It's been several shows ago, but what I do with gasoline and methanol, like this weekend in Savannah, we run, you know, regular pump gasoline, whether it's gasoline or methanol. If it's a bowl style carburetor, just drain the bowls and put the bowls back on it. And on each side of the carburetor, and I don't have one in here actually, I got on each side of the carburetor, in this area, behind these little areas right here, you'll see two little brass holes. And take some WD-40 in the spray can, stick in those brass holes, and spray it till you see it come out the carburetor on the bottom. And the other side, you spray it, it'll come out the side. I put a post on Facebook last week or the week before about that exact subject. Drain your carbs and spraying WD-40. And with the WD-40, you drain the fuel out, and when you spray the WD-40 in there, it pushes any excess fuel out, and it coats the inside of the carburetor and helps corrosion from stopping, and it also lubricates the rubber O-rings and stuff that seal this stuff up in there. And when you get ready to go run your engine next time, it fires up and runs crisp and clean. Methanol carburetors is the same way. Just drain it, squirt it up in there, and you're done. Tillotons, what I do with them is I unhook the line that comes from the pump. There's a line that goes from the pump to the carburetor. I unhook it from the pump, drain the fuel out of that line, hold it up in the air and fill it up with WD-40, and then I spin the engine over, and it sucks it down into the carburetor. I do that 2 or 3 times. Fill the line up with WD-40, spin it with the starter, and it sucks it down in, and you'll see, you know, the plug will be wet, and you'll see some come out the exhaust if you do it enough times. And what that does is it flushes all the fuel out of the carburetor, which Tillotons don't have a lot left in them, and it coats all the diaphragms and the gaskets and the rubber O seals and all that stuff in it. And it also coats the cylinder wall, because methanol is a dry fuel, and it helps coat the cylinder wall and the valves and all, keep stuff from rusting because of the methanol being on it. So it's a 2 bird, 1 stone, or 2 stone, 1 shotgun or whatever scenario. But I just use straight WD-40. I don't crank the engine up on it because I don't like firing the engine up on fuel that's not designed to run on. I just spray it into 2 holes, or either I run it through the line and suck it in, and everything's good to go. Daniel, I covered that exact topic there before. I got a video on that. But I'll go over it again because it's something that needs to be addressed. I'm glad you brought it up. On stockers, stock rods, billet rods, whatever. If it's a billet crankshaft, you ain't got to worry about it. But he's asking here, how do you keep rods from eating up the crank on clones and stuff? Like I say, the other video I done, it was a stock crankshaft, but of course this is a billet one, and it's not going to have the marks on it that a stock one does. Inside the area right here on the rod, right in here, there's casting marks. There'll be a little piece sticking out. I take a Dremel and I just go all the way around this right here and just kind of lay that little area there back. But right in this area in here, right below the journal, right about right here, you'll see a small shoulder sticking out. And what that does, when this crankshaft is turning, it's, you got a little bit of end play in it, and the rod itself can move back and forth on it also. And that rod gets over there and rubs on that little area, and it chews the side of the rod up. It's been a problem in engines for years, and people just say, oh, just run it and change the oil, it'll be fine. Why do you want that much metal running through your engine? That don't make no sense to me. All you got to do is get a Dremel, go in there, and there's a little area on stock crankshafts, not our billet ones. I'm just using this for an example because I don't have a stock one in my hand. But right in here, you'll see a little area that's a little shoulder that's risen up. Just take your Dremel and knock that down, and I go ahead and go all the way around the shaft and just kind of lay that back. I don't grind a lot off. I just kind of knock that little edge off of it all the way around on both sides. Then I polish my shaft, and that cuts 98% of that out. I don't care what rod you're using, whether it's the stock one or the billet one. Dramatically cuts that down. I do that to my stockers too. People say, oh, that's not legal. I don't care. I'm not going to build an engine, put all my time in this engine, fire it up and have it filled full of metal because some Chinese guy didn't take a file at the bottom of that crankshaft or it wasn't casted right. Take a Dremel, be careful with it, practice on some other crankshafts, and you can make them look, you can touch them up and then run your polishing cloth around it and it looks completely stock. But what it does is it cuts down on the metal that's cut off the side of that rod, because if you notice your stock rods, they'll be chewed up on the side there sometimes. Even these billet rods, if you don't cut that out, that little crankshaft, it'll cut these rods. And this material is a lot more abrasive in the oil than a stock rod is. But either way, do that to the crankshaft, and you don't have to worry about all that excess metal getting in there and messing up your rings or messing up your rod, and it just helps with longevity. But I'm glad you brought that up there. That's a good question, and I hope I answered. If not, I got a video on that. I forget what it's called. I'll think about it as soon as I get off the video, and I'll post it up down here, and it goes into more detail on how to cut that off and what to do. But David Simpson, if you want to make me an orange shirt that says I got a video on that, yes, I will watch it. And I'm glad that, I know you got off and come back on because it popped up that David Simpson's watching 3 times on here, which means you logged out and logged back on. That don't count as watching the whole video, just to let you know. Yeah, running gas with a mixture of WD-40 Marvel Mystery Oil is fine. Does basically the same thing, but I just do it, drain it out and spray it. That's just the way I've done it. Like I say, this ain't Jody Says, this ain't set stone. This is just how I've done it, and I've never had a problem with it. So if it ain't broke, I don't fix it. But there's nothing wrong with gas mixture. Nothing wrong with it at all. Grow a beard. I can't. Yeah, I'm 41 years old and I can't grow a full beard. When I was younger, 7, 8 years old, I had a little Honda 50 motorcycle, and I was always bad about not wearing a helmet. I thought I had a hard enough head. I do, but the one time I put on a helmet, and it was one of those little open face 1970s looking thing, it throws me over the handlebars, and I land on some very hard ground, rocky type ground, and it like tore the skin off the side of my face. And this whole area right here is an area about that big around that won't grow at all, so I can't grow a beard. So I may get one to, you know, strap on one day, but I can't grow one. Sorry. Wish I could, but I can't. Throw flatheads in the garbage. Flatheads are a good engine. The flatheads is a whole different type of build. It takes different tooling, special tooling, and a lot more tricks and know-how to build than these clones do. The clones are a lot easier to build, but flatheads are good engines. I like them. I love the way they sound. Who do I recommend to build a badass 420 big block head? NR makes some pretty good ones. The thing about it, building a head is the biggest thing is getting the valves and the seats put in it. The rest of it is something you can do. But you know, find somebody to put you some big valves and big seats in one, and do the rest yourself. Save a lot of money. Got any knowledge on a 351 Windsor? Sorry, I'm a Chevy guy. As far as getting a 3-inch stroker balanced, NR's got people that can do it. The guy that was up here before, Jason Rankin, he does crankshaft balancing. I'm sure, you know, you can get in contact with him. He's the one that commented earlier about, you know, getting them balanced over 2815, but he does a good job. Get in contact with him. His name's Jason Rankin. I believe he's in Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. He can hook you up. Does a good job from what I hear. Never heard nothing bad about him. I got New Zealand watching tonight. I need to write that down. I like to keep up with how many states watch, and I'm also keeping up with how many countries watch. And I want to say this is country number 9, if I'm not mistaken. That's great. That's good. Glad to have you, buddy. NR is one of our bigger dealers, man. They have a lot of stuff, does a lot of good job, does a lot of good work. Russell's one of the better guys in the business as far as making power and knowing what to do. He's a good guy, but he's a smaller operation, you know, so he don't have someone like me at ARC that can sit around and talk on the phone all day. So sometimes he might be a little hard to get a hold of, but you know, email him, message him, and all. And he does good work, got great products, good guy. My thoughts on an LO 206 class. Never thought about it. That's my thoughts. Now, there's nothing wrong with the LO 206. I do a lot of kidding with my friends about the 206s and stuff, but you know, the 206 is a great little engine for, you know, beginners class, for club racing, like what they do on the road racing stuff. Real good for club racing, beginners, you know, budget racing. You'll never see it in, you know, the bigger money style racing, you know, like Tri-State, you know, Burr Series, you know, the Western Series. You'll never see it there because, you know, it is a sealed engine and folks want to work on their stuff. But as far as the engine itself, they're good little engines. And they're great for, I would say, beginners, novice, club racing, you know, stuff like that, low budget racing. Nothing wrong with them. Shannon Portwood is watching tonight. I thought he fell off the map. I ain't heard from him in so long, but glad to see you, Shannon. Glad to see you. All right. Any more questions? Ever use Klotz oil? Would you use it in clone? Klotz 4-cycle oil if they still make it. I don't know if they still make it or not. It was some good stuff. I use Karts, in the 2-cycle stuff. Always use Karts air filter oil. I actually prefer Karts air filter oil if you can find it over K&N. Karts ain't never made junk. If they got 4-cycle oil, if you can find it, run it. Just make sure it's the right viscosity. Karts has always been good stuff. They've been around for a long, long time. Scott McCullum, that's my lighting. I have lights up and I got really blonde hair. It's not really gray. It's gray. I'm not gonna lie. I make my job a lot more stressful than it has to be, because I want to be there for everybody at all hours, no matter what. It gets really frustrating for me sometimes, as those that see me on my personal Facebook page. Sometimes I just have to say, look, y'all, I'm done for the day. I'm done for the week. I'm done for the weekend. I'm not answering nothing for a few days. But I make my job a lot more stressful than it has to be, and I'll admit that in front of everybody. But to be in the position that I am, I'm flattered that as many people, contact me for information that does. Because when I was working for other companies or working on my own, and then coming here and, exposing myself like I did. I didn't have to do that. I could have just been, an engine builder in the back of the building out there, but I chose to expose myself like I did and do these videos and do this stuff, because when I was coming up and learning this, of course, I grew up in a racing family and had a whole lot of racing background, a lot of racing heritage and history around my family. But my dad, I worked right alongside of him. He taught me the things that I needed to know, but I wanted more of it. I wanted to do this for a living, not just do it as a hobby. And a lot of this stuff I learned on my own. I had to learn it right by myself, and I didn't have the internet and these people that would just stop and take the time to talk to folks and teach them, and as my granddaddy would say, learn them stuff about this. So, when I got in a position that I could use the company's name that I'm working for, I took full advantage of it. And, I want everybody to succeed. I want all of our dealers to succeed. I want all of my engine builder guys, and business partners and friends like Scott McCullum to succeed. So if that means giving up the information that I've worked 6 months on, giving up the information that I've had many, many long sleepless nights over in order for them to succeed, that's what I'm going to do. Because it was, tough for me to learn this stuff, and with the power of the internet, I'm able to use my position and use my company to put myself in this position to put a lot more stress on me. And as Scott McCullum pointed out, my hair has a lot more wisdom streaks in it now than it did probably my last few videos. Thanks for pointing that out, Scott. Regis, I don't think there is any zinc in Thor oil. I think the Thor oil that we know of today, I'm not 100% sure on this. I'm not really going to answer too much because I don't want to say something that's not true. But I think Thor, the anti-wear agents in it are not zinc-based. I'm not 100% certain on that, so I don't think it does. Jody Power. I've been wanting to come up with a stage name for the show, but I don't think of it as a show because I'm not here to entertain. I'm here to educate. Sounds a little arrogant, but it's the truth. Like I said before, it took me years and years and years of hard work and blood, sweat, and tears to learn what I know, and then getting with this company I am now, with their wealth and knowledge and making parts and knowing this stuff. It's a win-win situation. So I want everyone to succeed. That's why I'm here to educate and not entertain. But we can come up with a stage name for it. We can call it something different. Y'all shoot some ideas out there to me. We might come up with something. We might get some shirts made. I don't know. Like I said before, buddy, the Power Plus oil is good oil. When people talk about these power benefits from oil, you get a lot of folks out there that have these big claims on oil. I don't claim that Lucas is going to make more power. In fact, you know, I've done tons of oil testing. I actually wore out a dyno. I had to buy a new dyno here a while back because I wore my other one out doing oil testing to see if there is power. The only time I've seen any power gain in any oil is on a cold engine with cold oil in it. Your Thors, your Cool Power, your Power Plus, the really thin weight oils, the lights, the super light oils, when the oils are cold, they're going to make more horsepower than your mediums or your heavy oils because of the viscosity, especially in stocker engines. You're dealing with limited horsepower, and when that dipper hits that oil, that thin oil, it's having to part it like a boat paddle. And the thicker the oil, the more it drags. But when you get that oil hot, those thicker oils thin up and make the same power that the thin oil did at the beginning. And that thin oil's gotten even thinner, which is causing drag in the engine because of lubrication. So it actually can drop the power off. That's why I settle on a medium weight oil on just about every. Well, the Lucas is a medium weight oil. That's why it is, because it's thin enough. It's got really good atomization at cold temperatures, and it doesn't lose as much viscosity when it gets hot. So it's the best of both worlds. It atomizes well cold, and it protects well at high temperatures. But that's the only real power I've seen from these oils is when they're cold. I ain't saying like ice cold, but you know, the engine can be warm. You change the oil in it, put cold oil in there, fire it right up. The thinner oils are going to make more power then, but get them hot. Do 7, 8, 9, 10 pulls in a row and watch what your horsepower numbers does versus a medium weight oil at 7, 8, 9, 10 pulls. And you'll see that on the latter pulls, when the head temp is up, 450, 460, that the medium weight oils are making the power that the light did when it was cold. But that's my my data on oils. A lot of claims, but you really got to put them on the dyno to really find out and do some longevity pulls on it. I've got something in my contact, and the screen is blurry on one side. I try to be entertaining. That's why I let my kid come in here. The first few videos I've done, I try to keep him out of here, for noise in the background and, stay out of here. But I had people call me up and actually get on with me and say, look, your son wants to come in here. You need to let him come in here because you advertise a family sport and business. You need to let your family be involved. So I let him come here when he wants to now, and that's kind of entertaining. There's been times actually here recently we've been out in public and people's actually recognized him from the videos more than they have me. So I guess that's a good thing. Yeah, I'd really love to come to Penton. Y'all keep me advertising when the UAS race is over. I will do my best to come to one. Maybe just to watch, but I would love to come to race. Speaking of UAS, another power of my job, I can advertise. Of course, y'all know that I'm the new Georgia UAS director, and I've got a 6-race series that starts next weekend. The first race of the series is at Dogwood, March 24th. We're running with the Burris series up there. Of course, the UAS is open tire. I'm personally, out of my personal wallet, going to give $50 to anybody that wins on a full set of Burris tires. So any UAS racers, 4-cycle open racers, my series will be up there in Dogwood next week. Go to my Facebook page, Georgia UAS, Georgia Unlimited All-Stars on Facebook. Get the full schedule, get all the rule rundown and everything that's going on. But next Saturday night, Dogwood, be there or get body slammed by Ric Flair. So 22-pound valve springs, too much for a stock crank and rod. No. Depending on what cam you got, those will probably be fine. But if you're running stock cam, stock carburetor, or stock class, 22-pound springs will put too much drag in the engine. They're too hard to compress. You'd be better off with 10.8s or 18s. Change the rod bearings and bolts, mild build, GX200. Depending on what oil you run, how long you run the oil, and how hard you are on the engine, I don't know, because y'all do things in hours. See, kart racers, we go by races. Something like that, if you're turning 75, 7,800, I'd say every 8 to 10 races. So probably 4 weekends for you, but just go a period and tear it down. Measure your bearings, measure your crank, see what your wear is, and then kind of judge from there. If you still got good wear and it hasn't worn any, your crank's still good, then you can go a little further. But depending on what kind of oil you run and how hard you are on it is going to vary to how quick you need to rebuild it. Daytona flash. Yeah, we flashed at Daytona. We were pretty good at Daytona on the road course. Savannah this weekend, we won both days over there, and Saturday, people say a win's a win, but I kind of fell into the win on Saturday. I was not the fastest kart, even though we were leading when the other two people that I was racing with had mechanical problems. Us three checked out on the field and was gone, but I feel like I was holding them up. So I wasn't the fastest kart, but they had mechanical problems and was still far enough ahead of the field that I held on for the win. Sunday, I was one of the fastest karts. Saturday, we made some changes, some tire changes. Everything was good. Again, I was in a 3-kart breakaway, and we swapped the lead every lap. It was some really good racing, really tight racing. Had a lot of fun doing it both days with all 3 guys. Really fun. In the latter laps, 2 of the guys I raced with kind of got together. I was able to get by, and we won that day. I feel better about winning on Sunday because I felt like I was one of the fastest karts. And Saturday, I just felt like I was off a little too much. But some days it's better to be lucky than good. I was lucky Saturday, Sunday. I was a whole lot better, but we did win both races. So that's 2 more piston cups for Landon, I guess. So I wonder he ain't come in here with them because they're sitting in there on the coffee table still. So I wonder he ain't come walking in here with them, drinking milk out of them or something. All right, I have sat here and rambled long enough because there's still a few questions here. And like always, if there's any questions that I can't see on here because I don't see all the questions, I will get to after I load the video up or the first thing in the morning. So again, thank everyone for stopping by. I am finna wrap it up, and like I said, I try my best to keep it short and sweet tonight, but kind of rambled on a little too far. But yeah, Scott, I will be at Dogwood next weekend. I won't be racing, but I will be there. I'm not going to race in my series. I've always been a big advocate of if you promote a series, if you promote a track, if you own a track, that you, your family, or nobody should be racing in it because it can cause problems. Because ARC is, help sponsoring the series a little bit. They're making the trophies and all for me. I'm not going to run it. I may run some of the 4-cycle open races later on in the year, but I'm not going to run the UAS series, no. But I will be there at all the events. I'm going to try to. But anyway, thank everybody for coming by. Any more questions, hit us up through Facebook here. Sales at arcracing.com, Jody at arcracing.com, toll-free number 800-521-3560. Shoot me a message. Thank everybody for stopping by. I hope I showed you something. I hope I didn't ramble too much. But anyway, see y'all next time. I'm hoping not next week, but hoping I'm going to try to do every other week if I can, but at least once a month because this is the busy time of the year for everybody. And I'm going to try to do a little more racing this year and talk about that some. But thank y'all for stopping by, and I will see y'all next time. Y'all take care. Have a good night.